please do understand that this indicator, in my experience, it does not work like super accurately, and I would always verify the conditions with another indicator. And it doesn't let you know the exact time or moment it's going to happen, unlike some other indicators. But in my opinion, it's a very useful tool because it works more of an alarm system, so that you don't have to stand at your computer all day. In this case, I am going to combine it with the stock RSI because I feel like it works better with that. So I'm going to show you how to add that on here too. You would go up to indicators, then we search up stock RSI. It's right here. We add it. Alright. We're also going to be using the code that I shared with you previously because that makes counting the candles a whole lot easier than doing it manually. It doesn't display the countdown because of TradingView's character limit, so instead it'll count the 13 candles invisibly, and then it'll show you the setup end, and that's where you would buy or sell. And then there's red ones for selling and green ones for buying. Another tip is that this indicator becomes more accurate on the larger time frames, so that's why I'm going to be using the 4-hour and the 1-hour charts. And like I said before, the best way to use this indicator is as an alarm. So to set it as an alarm, you go up to here where the alarm clock is, you click on the plus sign, and then you gotta change a few settings. First of all, since the coin I'm looking at is LTC, Litecoin, we're going to go up into here where the condition is. We're going to click on TD Sequential. Instead of characters, we're going to choose one of these. You can either do the selling countdown, the buying setup, the sell setup. Like I said before, the countdowns produce the biggest bounces and reversals, so that's the one I recommend using. For this one, since we're looking at when to buy, we're going to use the buying countdown. You can change this, however, depending on your needs. And now we need it to activate as soon as it shows up this little triangle. So we have to set it greater than 1. Because it's always going to be greater than 1, so it'll always activate as soon as the little character shows up. This is all up to your preference. I only need it once because it only sends me an email, and I don't want it to be sending like spamming me emails to my account, so I have it set to only once. If you're at your computer, then you can have it play the sound, so that way you don't have to stand on your computer all day. You could go around the house, do other stuff, or if you're at an office, you don't have to stand and keep watching the computer. It'll alert you for when you need to come check it. I usually have it set to send emails, so I can just be doing other stuff. I'll check my phone regularly, and if the condition has been met, it'll notify me, and I'll log on and do whatever needs to be done. But other than that, down here is all up to you. And then for the message, I usually put something like start looking for a bounce / support level, because that's where you would want to buy, and that's where you could predict that the trend will stop. And then usually I'll put the coin name as well, so that I don't have to log on to TradingView and see what coin this was for. So in this case, it's LTC USD T, for Tether. And there you go, you have an alarm set. And it should show up, and now it's active. As soon as one of these character symbols pops up, in this case it'll be a green one, it'll send me an email to my phone, and I will log back on and check on this. Alright, now we can look at some live examples to see past performance. We're going to start a little bit farther back so you can really see how useful this is. And like I said before, this indicator is great by itself, but I do not recommend using it by itself because usually it's a bit inaccurate. It's usually either a little bit too early that it tells you to buy or a little bit too late. In either case, you can improve the accuracy by combining it with another indicator. In this case, like I said before, I use stock RSI. So we're going to start back on the earliest setup that I can see right here. You can see right here that it's telling you to buy. It's met the conditions of a 9 count. However, you can see that it did in fact say it a bit too early, and you can see that there was a bit, you could have gotten a bit cheaper down here on candle 2. So we would have had to verify that using another indicator, in which case it would be stock RSI. If you can see here, this one right here actually matches up with the crossing over of the stock RSI. So right here, they both point to about the same place where the trend reversal was spotted. So right here, there's a crossover. So right here would have been a good point to buy. Afterwards, you would have had this huge bounce up right here. And then right here, there's a setup sell. So this is where it's recommending the sell. As you can see, right here is when it kind of like the trend slowed down, and then it hit a small dip right here. So again, that was correct. And then the crossover did in fact happen right here. So you can see this setup told you to sell a little bit too late. But again, you probably would have missed this anyway. But since you can see that the crossover did happen right here, so it happened in about almost the same range. So again, this would have worked pretty good, I think. And then we continue on. It's telling you to sell right here, which obviously it's way too early. But again, that's why you need another indicator to verify it. In this case, it would have set up an alarm. It would have let you know. Then you would have kept watching it. But because the stock RSI did not cross over yet, we wouldn't have, at least I wouldn't have acted upon it. I would have kept watching it like regularly, like maybe I would have to say every 4 hours. And then I would have waited for the crossover, which happened right about here. Which, if you notice, is about the same place that this reached its highest point. Afterwards, it did in fact reach a pretty hard dip. So again, it was kind of accurate on this point, but again, we had to verify using another indicator. And down here, it did not give us another buy symbol, but that's why you can't just rely on one indicator, because if we had relied on just the TD sequential, we would have missed out on all of these dips. So then we come down and we see this right here. We see that there was a crossover all the way up to here. It continues. Before I begin though, anywhere from here to here would have been a good area to buy. And then right here is when it clearly crossed over. So right here, let's see, up to once it reached over here, it was already about halfway up. So I mean, right here would have been a good area to buy, except that had we used a TD sequential alone, we would have missed out on all of this. Which, I mean, it's okay. It's not really that bad. Oops, my bad. But again, we're trying to make as much profit as we can. So we would have TD sequential pops up again right about here. So all this would have been ignored. It does tell you to buy right here, and so does the stock RSI, and there is a small little bounce right here, which, I mean, it would have netted you, let me see how much it would have netted you, maybe about 6%, which, I mean, it's alright. And although I don't think it would have been worth this risk, but again, there's no way to have predicted the huge fall that was coming afterwards, because again, stock RSI, it crossed over, the TD setup, TD sequential is telling you to buy. I mean, this was just, it happens. Next, the next one would be right here. This one actually seems to have worked a little bit better. We can see that the stock RSI crossed over. TD sequential is telling you to buy. So this one's telling you to buy right here. The stock RSI crossed over, so this would have been an instant buy. Would have made about this much. It does not tell you when to sell. But using the stock RSI, you can see that the selling point would have been right here, because this is when it's crossing over. So somewhere along this candle is when you would have sold. And then let's see. Let's check out two more. So here's another setup end, and as you can see here, where's my pen? Right here. You can see right here. Let me move this over a little bit. It did in fact cross over. And then if you notice here again, TD sequential is in fact marking another buy, which would have netted you a small profit. And then unfortunately, this would have been a loss, because both indicators are showing a reversal, when in reality the downtrend still continued. So like I said again, it's not always perfect, but it is accurate most of the time. And then right here, we have no TD sequential is not telling us to buy yet. it does tell us to sell right here, on this candle right here, on this red one right here. And then right here we also have this right here, so that is, it does in fact match up. So we this would have been a good selling point, because both the indicators are in fact telling us to sell. And then we would have missed out on this huge downtrend that probably did destroy a lot of traders. There was a buying point right here, but that's when you have to just make judgment calls, because again, this call was inaccurate. It was clearly inaccurate. The downtrend was still had like another 50% to go. But the stock RSI, I guess it depends how you would have looked at this. Personally, I wouldn't have bought because it's not in the oversold oversold area. So maybe I wouldn't have bought, but I'm not sure since I wasn't checking out this coin during this time. So yeah, in this case, only one of the indicators is pointing to a buy. In which case, using the TD sequential, I would wait until both indicators are pointing towards a buy, instead of like this scenario where only the TD sequential is telling you to buy, but the stock RSI is not pointing that way. Then right here we have another sell, which I would have sold at, because as you can see here, there's a crossover. TD is telling you to sell, and again, you would have received the alarm right about here. You would have kept watching it. Maybe if you got lucky, you would have sold during this peak, and then you would have missed out on this giant downfall. And then again, there's another buying point right here. So right here you can see it tells you to buy, which is still a little bit early. You still would have hit a pretty big fall right here if you bought. But let me see right here. There's not a crossover yet. There's not a crossover until this point right here. So right about there. So I mean, if you had used the TD sequential, you would have bought too early. But combining with another indicator, we were able to buy it somewhere on these two candles, which would have netted us a pretty good profit. So then again, we wait until we have a good selling confirmation, which in this case is right here, because you can see there's a crossover right there. It's telling us to sell right here. And then we missed out on this huge fall. We don't receive another buying one until right here, which again is wrong, because you can see this is in fact crossing over, but it was a fake crossover because it continued to just stay flat for this entire area. So this one would have been a loss, but that's okay. You can't win every single trade. So now we just have to calculate how much profit that would have been long term. So going back to where we began, right here. So we would have bought somewhere around here, hit this area. That's 61%. So let's keep track of that. 61%. And then we don't receive another buy until right here, which would have been a loss. Right? Yep. That would have been a loss if I remember correctly, of about, let's say, well, if you have a stop loss active, like every single time you do a trade, you shouldn't lose more than 5%. So we'll add that as a 5% loss. And then we have another buy point right here. So that's put it right here because you can't always time it perfectly. Up to here, that's 20%. We bought again over here. Say maybe another 7%. Do we buy again here? Yep, because there was a crossover. So right here, it does not tell us to sell until over here. But I doubt we would have gotten all of this. So maybe up to here, so another 28%. And then we buy again right here. Let me see, where's the so right here. again for another 5% loss. Now we gotta wait until the next buying point, which is in fact right here, which comes out to we can say about, I think that's 63% if I can see correctly. And about 42% or so. So you can see already we've lost about maybe 10% total so far, but we've made probably over 100% profit, just because keeping a tight stop loss of 5%, and because of TD Sequential overall, like over time, it will net you the big jumps, but it will cost you in like small amounts, like 5%, usually every about 30% of the time, but the 60% time of that you do win, it will net you big gains. And yeah, I think that's about as far as we went. So as you can see, the TD Sequential by itself is kind of accurate, but it's usually too early or too late, so I don't recommend using it by yourself. If you do end up using it, however, I do highly recommend using it with Stock RSI, because as you can see, had we followed it just on this coin alone, we would have made well over 100% profit. But yeah, that's about it. Next video, I'm thinking I might do a video on what indicators I use myself. But if you guys have any better suggestions, please do leave it down in the comments, and do leave any feedback on how I can improve my videos. If this was helpful to you, please do like, share, and subscribe so that I can help other people too. And happy trading.